In a couple of recent reviews, the most affordable products outperformed the most expensive ones. So is it possible that this chainsaw, which cost around $100, can actually outperform a $550 name brand saw? Let's find out. In the first test, we'll see which saw makes the most torque. Then we'll see which one cuts the fastest. We'll see which one offers the best fuel efficiency. We'll see if a genuine Stihl bar and chain will help the knockoff saws. At a price of around $100 is this Topteng brand. It has a 52cc engine and a 20-inch bar. The manufacturer claims it makes 2.7 horsepower. The Topteng has an inward-facing sprocket, which makes installing the bar and chain a little more challenging. The bar is secured by two studs that are connected directly to the aluminum engine. The saw comes with filling spikes that have to be installed. The engine cover nut secures the engine cover and the air filter in place. And the air filter will stop the big stuff, but the filter is far too porous to stop the fine dust particles. And the engine has an SAP brand spark plug. The spark plug has quite a bit of carbon deposits already on it. So the manufacturer spent some time tuning the saw. The dowel on the clutch cover has to slide into the hole on the bar to adjust the chain tension. The chain brake and the bar adjustment screw are built into the plastic cover, which is a really light-duty design. The fuel fill is very easy to access, but the bar oil fill is just under the handle and might be a little difficult to reach. Before adding gas and oil, the Topteng weighs 12.57 pounds. The fuel container started out at 17.3 ounces, and it now weighs 2.5 ounces after filling the fuel tank. So the fuel capacity is very close to 14.8 ounces. Let's start the engine. And the Topteng doesn't have a fuel primer. Tilt the switch lever upward. Pull out the choke knob to the closed position. While holding the saw unit securely on the ground, pull the starter rope vigorously. When the engine first ignites, push the choke knob and pull the starter again to start the engine. And it took 10 pulls on the starter rope to start the engine for the first time. And the Topteng is pretty loud at 118.5 decibels from 24 inches from the sound meter. 11,190 RPM on the sprocket is pretty decent for a $100 saw. Also the price between $100 and $110 is this 58cc saw. Just like the Topteng, it has a 20-inch bar. It claims to make 3.2 horsepower. It claims to have a maximum working speed of 13,000 RPM. Made in China. And the 58cc saw's construction looks very similar to that of the 52cc saw. However, there are some differences. This saw includes a gasket for the air filter and the Topteng doesn't. The 52cc saw has an SAP brand spark plug and this one has an MYSP brand. This saw has a lot less deposits, so less time tuning the saw. Unlike the 52cc saw, this one has a throttle lock that's supposed to help with starting the saw. The on-off switch and the choke setup are the same. The handle for the pull start is also a little different. And the 58cc saw weighs 12.8 pounds. And the 58cc saw has just about the same fuel capacity at 14.4 ounces. While holding the throttle lever together with the throttle interlock, push in the side throttle lock button and release the throttle lever to hold it at the starting position. Pull out the choke knob to the closed position. Just like the previous saw, this one doesn't have a fuel primer. However, it does have a throttle lock, but it doesn't seem to be helping. And the 58cc saw finally fired off after 11 pulls on the starting rope. And it's up and running on the 12th attempt. And the 58cc saw is making about 100 RPM less than the 52cc saw at 11,084 RPM. 118 decibels is about the same as the 52cc saw. At a price of $550 is this Stihl MS 291. I bought the saw at a dealership and it came already assembled. The Stihl has a 55.5cc engine. 3 screws have to be removed to take off the engine cover to access the spark plug. And the filter media on the Stihl is designed to do a much better job of filtering the air compared to the other two saws. And the Stihl has an NGK spark plug. A little carbon buildup on the spark plug, so this saw has been started and tuned. And the Stihl has an outward facing sprocket, which makes installing the bar and chain a lot easier. The chain adjustment screw is also on the side of the saw, which really helps make it easy. Instead of being built into the side covers like the knockoffs, the Stihl chain brake is built into the saw. The chain brake handle on the Stihl is also mounted to 2 different parts of the saw, making it a lot more sturdy. Compared to the knockoff saws, the felling spikes on the Stihl are much more aggressive. Just like the 2 knockoff saws, the Stihl has a 20-inch bar. And the Stihl weighs 15.52 pounds. And the Stihl has a little smaller fuel tank than the other 2 saws at 12.9 ounces. So that's only about 1.5 to 2 ounces less fuel. The fill port for the bar oil is a little easier to access than the other 2 saws. To start the saw, position the master control lever to the full choke position. Place your right foot into the rear handle and press down. Hold the saw firmly on the ground with your left hand on the front of the handle. Pull the starter grip slowly with your right hand until you feel it engage. Then give it a brisk, strong pull. Move the master control lever to the run position. And the Stihl doesn't have a fuel primer, so it took 11 pulls on the starter rope to start the saw for the first time. And the Stihl's engine revs about 2,000 RPM faster than the other 2 saws at 13,137. Let's test the torque of each of the saws using this tester I put together. The steel plate weighs right at 10 pounds and the scale is showing 10 pounds. And the Topteng saw perform well at 22 pounds of downward force to stop the chain on the first attempt, and is 22 pounds on the second attempt. And the third attempt is the same as the first two at 22 pounds. And the 58cc saw gave up early at 16 pounds on the first attempt, and it also struggled on the second attempt at 17 pounds, and at 17 pounds again on the third attempt. So the 52cc saw actually makes quite a bit more power compared to the 58cc saw. And the Stihl moves into the lead at 28 pounds on the first attempt, and the Stihl performed the same again on the second attempt at 28 pounds. And it's 28 pounds on the third attempt, which is by far the best of all the brands. And the Stihl makes quite a bit more torque than the other two brands. However, the Topteng also performed very well. Let's see how long it takes for the saws to cut through 9 4x4s. I'll push the saws as hard as possible and I'll try to avoid stalling the saw. And the Topteng is faster than I expected, and it performed very well at 13.7 seconds on the first cut. And the Topteng performed very close to the same on the second cut in 13.5 seconds, which is a really good time on this test. And the saw lost a little cutting speed on the third pass at 14.4 seconds. So 13.5 seconds is the fastest time and is a time to beat. And the 58cc saw just doesn't make enough torque. Unfortunately, the chain came to a stop once during the test and it just didn't cut very fast. And 25.2 seconds is almost twice as long as the 52cc saw. And once again, the 58cc saw just doesn't make enough power and it's a little slower at 29.7 seconds. And the saw finished the third cut in 28.5 seconds. So 25.2 seconds is the fastest cut time of the three. And the Stihl makes about 2,000 more RPM than the competition and a lot more torque. And the high chain speed and the torque made a huge difference. And 10.4 seconds is about 30% faster than the Topteng. And the Stihl performed even better on the second cut at 9.6 seconds, or about 4 seconds faster than the Topteng. And the third pass is about the same speed as the second at 9.7 seconds. Looking at just the fastest cut, the Stihl is almost 4 seconds faster than the 52cc Topteng. While the Stihl easily outperformed the other two saws, the Topteng actually performed very well for a budget saw. To provide more of an apples-to-apples test, let's see how fast each of the saws will cut through the boards with 5 pounds of weight on the bar. The test log is becoming pretty short, so I'll make just one pass. With 5 pounds on the bar, the Topteng made the cut in 18.8 seconds. So with just the weight of the saw and 5 extra pounds, the Topteng makes more than enough power to handle extra downward force. And the 58cc saw barely makes enough torque to keep the chain moving, and it's 19.3 seconds to make the cut. With less downward force, the Stihl had very good chain speed and made a very fast cut in 12.7 seconds. I bought an extra bar and chain. It's identical to the bar and chain that's on the MS 291. As far as the chain, all the saws use a .325 pitch. Even though it's not a perfect fit, let's see how the saws cut with a brand name bar and chain. And the Stihl chain is very sharp, but it requires a lot of torque to keep it moving. And the Topteng made the cut in 13.5 seconds. So it's not any faster, but it did tie its fastest pass from the previous test. And the 58cc saw just doesn't make enough torque to handle the chain. And 25.7 seconds is very close to the fastest pass in the previous test. Let's add 5 pounds to the bar. And the Topteng made very good time making the cut in 12.7 seconds. And the 58cc saw just doesn't make enough torque to keep the chain moving. Unfortunately, the saw came to a stop a couple of times during the test. Let's take down a tree that recently died and I'll use it in the next test. I'll fasten a chain about 20 feet up the tree. It's a long ways down, so hopefully the logging chain hook stays attached. And the tree is in pretty good shape and the tractor just won't be able to pull over the tree without a little help from the chainsaw. And the size of the tree varies too much at the bottom. So I'll start the testing at the center of the tree. The tree is about 14 by 18 inches. And once again, for around $100, the Topteng performed very well. And the Topteng made the cut in 35.7 seconds. And the second cut is a little slower than the first at 37 seconds. Not bad for a budget price saw. And the third cut is the fastest of the three at 34.3 seconds. So 34.3 is the time to beat. Once again, the 58cc saw just doesn't make enough torque for cutting through thick material. Compared to the Topteng, it took twice as long at over a minute to make the first cut. And the second pass took even longer than the first one at 1 minute and 24 seconds. And the third cut was a little faster than the second one at 72 seconds. So 64 seconds is the fastest pass of the three. And the MS 291 made the fastest cut yet at 27.8 seconds on the first pass. So the Stihl is about 20% faster than the Topteng. And the Stihl made the second pass 4 seconds faster in 23.9 seconds. And the Stihl MS-291 made the fastest pass of the three in 22.3 seconds. So the MS-291 is about 12 seconds faster than the Topteng. The Stihl saw manufacturer claims that their saw is very fuel efficient and it does have the smallest fuel tank. So let's compare fuel efficiency next. I'll go ahead and top off each of the oil and fuel tanks before beginning the test. And the Topteng holds almost 15 ounces of fuel. And the Topteng made 31 passes and is finally out of fuel at 17 minutes and 22 seconds. And the 58cc saw is noticeably slower compared to the Topteng, and the saw only made 12.5 passes in just over 18 minutes. While the saw did run a little bit longer than the Topteng, it accomplished about half the work. And the Stihl is cutting a lot faster than the Topteng and the 58cc saw. And I'm quickly running out of log. And the Stihl has the smallest fuel tank of the three saws, but it's the fastest cutting and has the longest run time yet at over 19 minutes. And 41 slices for the Stihl is 10 more than the Topteng and 28.5 passes more than the 58cc saw. So whether it's a test log or an actual log, the outcome is the same each time, with the Stihl coming out on top, followed by the Topteng. All of the saws have had fuel added and have been started. They've also been left outside overnight and the temperature is in the low 30s. So let's see how they perform starting in the cold temperature. And it took 12 pulls on the starting rope to start the Topteng. And the 58cc saw has a trigger lock and it really helped. And it took 5 pulls on the starting rope to start the saw. And it took 5 attempts to start the Stihl, the same as a 58cc saw. I'll use a push-pull meter to measure the amount of force it takes to start the saws. And it took a peak force of 15 kilograms or about 33 pounds for the Topteng. And a 58cc saw takes about 14.5 kilograms or about 32 pounds. So very similar to the Topteng. And the peak force for the Stihl is more than twice as much as the other two saws at around 31 kilograms or 68 pounds. And the Knockoff saws vibrated way too much for the tester. And the Stihl is pretty comfortable to use and has very little vibration. So which saw is the best? Not surprisingly, the $550 Stihl easily won the showdown, but it is very expensive. However, if you're looking for a budget saw, considering the price and performance, the Topteng seems like a great buy. A big thank you to everyone that requested this review, and thank you so much for supporting the channel. All the videos in this channel, including this one, are viewer suggested. So if you have a video idea, I hope you'll take time to leave a comment. Thanks so much for watching. Please take care, and I look forward to next time.